Before we begin, I want to warn you, this case contains disturbing details involving recovered remains and long-term predatory behavior. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This is the story of the Lantern Lake disappearances, one of the most unsettling cases to ever shake the quiet mountain town of Westridge, a place that believed it was safe, a place that thought tragedies only happened somewhere else. Everything changed on a cold September morning in 2014. The sun hadn't broken through the fog yet, and the surface of Lantern Lake was so still it almost looked frozen. A local fisherman named Howard Klein headed out in his small rowboat the same way he had for nearly 20 years. Fishing was his peace, his ritual. But that morning, something felt different, heavy, quiet, wrong. When Howard cast his line, he felt an immediate snag. At first he cursed under his breath, assuming he had hooked a submerged stump. But as he reeled it in, he realized it was something else, something dense, soft, and tangled. When the dripping shape finally broke the surface, Howard's stomach dropped. It was a woman's jacket, still zipped, waterlogged, and weighed down by several rusted bolts crudely tied along the bottom hem. Someone wanted this jacket to stay hidden on the lake floor. Howard recognized it instantly. Every person in Westridge would have. It belonged to 27-year-old hiking guide, Mara Ellison, who had vanished without a trace just 2 weeks earlier. Mara wasn't the kind of person who got lost. She grew up on those mountain trails. She worked as a hiking guide. She trained search and rescue volunteers. If anything, she was the one who rescued other people, not the one who needed rescuing. But on the morning of August 28th, Mara left for a short solo hike and never came home. When search teams reached the Ridge Trail, they found something deeply unsettling. Her hiking boots, placed neatly side by side at the trailhead. Not tossed, not kicked off, but placed, as if she had stepped out of them willingly. Beyond that point, there was nothing. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. No broken branches or dragged soil. It was as if Mara had walked up to that trailhead and vanished into thin air. 4 days, search teams combed the forest. Helicopters circled overhead. Dozens of volunteers formed grid lines and walked for miles. But the mountains kept their secrets. The woods were silent. And Mara was gone. So when her jacket appeared in Lantern Lake, miles from the trail, in a place with no streams or natural pathways connecting the two, investigators knew immediately that something sinister had happened. Someone had moved her. Someone had planned this. And when forensic teams examined the jacket, they noticed something even more chilling. The zipper had been forcibly snapped open. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't nature. This was deliberate. The discovery shook Westridge to its core. This was a town where people didn't lock their doors, where kids rode their bikes until nightfall, where hikers roamed without a second thought. But after the jacket was pulled from Lantern Lake, everything changed. People started locking their doors before the sun went down. Parents kept their kids close. Neighbors who used to wave from across the street began studying each other with suspicion. Whispered rumors spread through the town like wildfire. Rumors of a stranger seen camping deep in the woods, of a motorboat heard on the lake late at night even though no one in town owned one. Something was wrong, and everyone felt it. 2 days later, investigators sent a dive team into Lantern Lake to search the bottom. They weren't expecting to find much, maybe a backpack, maybe a piece of gear that had drifted. But 20 minutes into the dive, one of the divers surfaced abruptly, tearing off his mask and gasping for breath. Down at the bottom of the lake, they found a metal structure, partially collapsed, buried in layers of silt, but unmistakably man-made. And inside, it were waterlogged plastic sleeves holding old photographs. The photos were damaged by water, but still clear enough to make out faces. Dozens of faces. None of them belonged to people known in Westridge. None had been reported missing by anyone in town. Each photograph showed a different victim, posed in an identical position, illuminated by the dim orange glow of a lantern. Their expressions were strained, fearful, resigned. These weren't portraits. They were trophies. Investigators knew immediately that Mara's disappearance wasn't an isolated case. They were dealing with someone organized, someone patient, someone who had been doing this for a very long time. Following this disturbing discovery, officers expanded their search to the remote northern shore of the lake, an area locals rarely visited due to its steep cliffs and dense pine growth. Hidden behind a thick wall of trees, they found an old maintenance shed. It belonged to a long-abandoned water treatment facility. It should have been covered in dust and cobwebs, completely untouched. But it wasn't. Inside were fresh footprints, cut rope, tools that didn't belong. And pinned to the wall was a hand-drawn map, detailed, careful, and terrifying. The map showed a narrow, hidden trail starting from the far end of the ridge trail, right near where Mara's boots were found, and leading directly to a small wooden dock on the lake's edge. A secret path, one that only someone with deep knowledge of the forest would even know existed. Whoever had taken Mara was using this private route to move victims from the woods into the lake. This wasn't random. This wasn't sloppy. This was methodical. The investigation eventually led authorities deeper into the forest to a small off-grid cabin owned by a man named Evan Marlowe. Evan had once worked for the Forestry Service. Locals describe him as quiet, withdrawn, maybe a little strange, but harmless. When officers stepped inside his cabin, they realized how wrong that assumption was. Because every wall told a story. One entire section of the cabin was lined with shelves, neatly organized, each shelf labeled with a date. And on each shelf, a personal item, a bracelet, a keychain, a torn piece of clothing, a watch, belongings matching the people in the photographs found underwater. Evan didn't fight when officers arrested him. In fact, he seemed almost relieved. When detectives questioned him, he spoke softly, almost like he was explaining a hobby. He said the lake kept secrets. He said he had been choosing the right people for years. He said the lake accepted them. His words were chaotic, delusional, but his actions showed structure, planning, and years of preparation. After several more dives, investigators found human remains near the submerged metal structure. They were identified as Mara Ellison's. Her family finally received the closure they had been praying for, though it came with unimaginable grief. In the months following Marlowe's arrest, Lantern Lake was fenced off and permanently closed to the public. Warning signs and security cameras were installed. The hidden dock was destroyed, the shed sealed, and the trail blocked off. The town of Westridge began to heal, slowly. Businesses reopened. Children returned to school. People tried to reclaim their sense of safety. But something in the town's spirit had shifted forever. To this day, residents say the lake feels different now. The water is as still as ever, but somehow heavier, like it remembers everything it held at the bottom. Like it carries the weight of every secret it nearly kept buried. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right and ripples spread across the surface, people who live near Lantern Lake swear they feel a lingering chill, a reminder of what was almost never discovered. Because if a fisherman hadn't cast his line at that exact moment, the truth of Lantern Lake might still be resting in the dark. As always, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more exciting stories.